Slightlier.
Much slightly. Much slightlier.
Slighter. Much slighter.
Wow.
Dude, you wanna know what's really fucking creepy? What's
Hmm.
really fucking like sends chills down my spine? I was on Twitch the other day, just kind of fucking around. And because I never really messed around with Twitch, but I wanted to see like what people are going on Twitch for and like what is bringing people onto Twitch and finding us. Like what are they looking for when they find us and shit.
Hmm.
And the amount of the amount of people that are watching grown ass men play like Roblox. Like my kids, my young kids play Roblox. I had to show my wife this. I was like, look at this. Look at this. This is a grown ass man. This is a grown ass man who is probably playing this with a bunch of 7 to 11-year-olds. I'm like,
Haven't they said that they're using like Roblox and stuff for like trafficking?
well, that sent us down our own like little rabbit hole and stuff, right? So we looked into it and we were seeing all this shit on predators using Roblox to
Mhm.
to hunt kids and shit. And
Yeah.
it's fucking disturbing.
Oh yeah.
And it's all over Twitch. All over it. And it's got 30, 40, 50,000 fucking viewers at one time. This grown fucking man. And it's not even just one person. Multiple streams going at once.
I got a few theories on that. I mean, so first off, I'll be generous and I'll just say that there are a lot of content creators that just do content on something that they know is popular and will get views, right? So there's a lot, for instance, there's a lot of people who will stream Minecraft, right? Now, I'm a grown ass man. I still love playing Minecraft. It's a fun game, right? Um, there's a difference because there's no chat. You can't talk to people in Minecraft like you can in Roblox, right? So it's slightly different. But there's people who will stream Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite that are grown ass men or whatever, just because it's popular and it gets views. So that's the generous portion, right? There's a percentage of those that are just doing that. Um, the other part of it is, I think another percentage, it's not zero, are I don't want to say bots, but like controlled like a controlled thing, like it's being,
Like a dead internet theory kind of thing.
yeah, like a dead internet theory kind of thing, right? Like or just people who are literally paid to do the thing, right? To keep kids and people distracted. Then there's a percentage, which is not zero, of people who, like you said, are like creepy as fuck, like they're doing creepy stuff. So there's a mixed bag in there, obviously, like anything else.
That is awesome. Not that. I'm sorry, I'm totally looking at something different.
I was like, whoa.
No, not not that. No, I actually gonna my brother just posted a picture of him and his girlfriend as his Facebook photo, and he's wearing an Infinite Rabbit Hole shirt at a
Sick.
Milwaukee Brewers game.
Nice.
Sick.
So that's what I was saying also too. Not the weird.
Not the grooming on Twitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not that. That
Okay.
that shit's fucking disturbing, man. I
Yeah. It's weird, man. It's out there. Uh, What are you gonna do? Don't let your kids have the internet, I guess.
how.
I've worn my Infinite Rabbit Hole shirt to physical therapy, and people ask me about it.
Oh
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I got your tie dye shirts done.
Nice.
Skeeter got his tie dye shirt the other day.
I saw it on Facebook.
Sick. Mine's the
Yeah.
best though. Mine's like mostly purple, which is fucking sick.
Yeah, I
See,
totally forgot to make yours mostly purple. I'm sorry. I totally forgot to tell my wife that you wanted mostly purple.
No, I have one in the closet
Not
already.
oh.
not you. Crystal said that she wanted mostly purple.
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I messed up. I messed up.
Who's in the chat? We got Skeeter, Crystal, Kid, Twinkie.
Twinkie.
Who's Twinkie again?
Twinkie is Danny.
Danny.
Yeah, Danny.
Danny.
It says there's zero viewers though.
There's 8 viewers from
Zero.
mine.
Who else is here?
So did we decide? Are we gonna get into some spooky fucking dark rabbit hole stuff today?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get into some dark stuff. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this video shareable. So we're streaming on Facebook for the first time, but it's only streamable, or it's only streaming on my account, my profile, and there's no share button underneath it. So I'm trying to figure out how I can share it. How do I share it? How to
I
make
don't think you
shareable?
can. Crystal, can you go to his profile and see if you can share it?
Yeah, let me see.
How do I do it?
She's on it. She's trying. Yeah, we're gonna have a fun, spooky, one of my favorite types of episodes where we get just paranoid about the government trying to freaking wreck us all the time. It's super awesome
It
stuff.
just shows the Twitch from June 22nd. There's not anything happening currently.
Yeah.
So
Weird.
Hmm.
Could probably share it after the fact. Facebook is whack, bro. Like you said, it's 2025. They still don't have their shit together. It's gonna be like MySpace soon, just dead. Zuckerberg and Tom are gonna be chilling together.
Yeah, I don't know how to make it shareable. I have no idea.
You know what
You
I
might-
heard? I heard that MySpace went under because Tom refused to sell all the data.
he did.
Shout out to Tom if that's true.
He sold whatever he sold of it, but he didn't. Yeah, he wasn't going to give away like any of the private, like the other information or whatever.
If that's true, you're the goat, Tom.
That's why people still like him.
It's not that important.
I guess I gotta go to audience selector. How do I audience selector? How do you do that? I'll see it. I don't see it. I don't fucking see it.
I don't know. Not that important.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's not a figure it out the night of the podcast type of thing.
All right. Well, I guess my producer says that I have to get my ass going.
Get your ass in gear, boy.
All right. Well, I guess we'll get her started. And all right, well, yep, let's go. Let's do this. Oh, ooh, getting a ton of notifications. All right. Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy. Today, we are going to do something a little bit different. We're going to have a little bit of shadow band on Infinite Rabbit Hole. And we're going to hand the reins over to old Jeffrey here today. And we're going to see how that goes. We're going to talk about some dark stuff, some weird stuff, some stuff that if you were in the live stream right when we went live, you would know that we talked a little bit about the dark side of Twitch and some of the weird shit that I saw when I explored a little bit of Twitch for the very first time. Yeah, I did call Jeff old Crystal.
Rude.
I did. It is what it is. Look how old he is. Old and beautiful. Aged like a fine wine. Look at him. Like a fine bearded wine.
Jeremy is older than me.
I am. All right. What's up, dude? How you doing?
Chilling, bro. I'm excited. These are my favorite types of episodes, man. I like to go on the other side of the rabbit holes, right? And get into the spooky stuff, like what are they doing to us, right? That kind of thing, rather than just questioning UFOs and cryptids and all that fun stuff, which I enjoy, but I definitely enjoy the conspiracy side a lot more. So I'm stoked to get into it, and feel free to fact check anything that I say if I go on a rant. And yeah.
Oh yeah, fact checkers in the chat, do it. So I just right now I'm doing a lot of prep work for UFO days. I'm much more invested this year than I was last year, so I'm doing a ton of prep work. So I'm a little behind on trying to get people um in for to be guests. We're also Jeff and I are kind of working a little bit behind the scenes working on a major guest which we hopefully can break news on within the next couple weeks. We'll see how that goes. Um, but things are definitely not stale here. We got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So this week, next week, the following week, we may just have some chats going on, and that's just how it's going to be here on the Infinite Rabbit Hole. So Jeff runs an entire other podcast called the Shadow Band Podcast, as most of you will know. For those of you that don't, surprise, Jeff does another podcast. Um, and he talks about all things conspiracy, basically everything underneath this strange and unknown sun that the Infinite Rabbit Hole basically falls short of doing without Jeff's input, right? Jeff is that little conspiracy theorist on our shoulders when it comes to all of the topics that we run run with here in the Infinite Rabbit Hole. When we talk about the aliens, when we talk about the cryptids, when we talk about the parallel worlds and everything that we've ever done, he's always there to whisper in our ears about how the government's behind it and about how we should all be wearing tinfoil hats and how, you know, uh ancient civilizations are really just uh you know, the government, right? That's perfectly what you say, right?
You nailed it. Show's
That's
over.
yeah. But um so I'm gonna hand the reins over to him today, and we've already kind of discussed a little bit about the route that we're gonna go down, and yeah, that's pretty much it. This it all kind of just started with me talking to him about a rabbit hole that I was going down, having to do with uh, food, food, and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now with some of the changes that we're having done here in the U.S. about the foods and all the companies rushing to take the food dyes out of our daily gruel. So
Yeah, and I'll just say right off the bat, my phone is dying because I didn't charge it because I'm a dum dum. So I'm not going to be able to see the chat really. I can kind of see it on the screen up there. So if there's anything that's like super awesome, I'm gonna count on Jeremy and Crystal to kind of like throw it at me because I can't read the chat. So sorry about that in advance. But the food, yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of how do I? There's a lot of moving parts to how they, right? I'm going to say they a lot in this episode. When I say they, I don't necessarily mean the government, right? They to me is the shadow government, right? Or the lizard people or the deep state, or like pick your term. Nobody knows their names. It's just a group of they, okay? Um, there's a lot of moving parts to how they are manipulating our minds, our health, our attention spans, and all these things to what I think is to shift us from our humanity, right, into something else, right? Transhumanism, um, whatever it is, right? So we can start with the food if you want, Jeremy, or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I don't.
now I was just bringing that up just to kind of give them an idea of how we got into that. I think transhumanism is a good place to start. I, I think that's a good place because I think that's a good transition between where Infinite Rabbit Hole and Shadowban kind of come together.
Yeah. Do you want to read? Because again, my phone is almost dead. Do you want to read the definition that you got of transhumanism, and then I'll just kind of
Yeah.
fire from the hip with that? Yeah.
So going on to Grok on X, just simply asking Grok, what is transhumanism? Let's set the definition that Grok gives us of what exactly transhumanism is so that those listening can understand what we're referring to. Okay, transhumanism is a philosophical and intellectual movement that advocates for the enhancement of the human condition through advanced technology and science. It seeks to overcome biological limitations such as aging, disease, cognitive constraints, and mortality by integrating technologies like artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, cybernetics, and nanotechnology. The goal is to augment human capabilities, including intelligence, physical strength, and lifespan, potentially leading to a post human state where humans transcend their current biological form. Key ideas include human enhancement, using tech like brain computer interfaces, gene editing, or prosthetics to boost physical and mental abilities. Two, longevity, pursuing radical life extension or even immortality through medical advancements or mind uploading. Three, singularity. Some transhumanists anticipate a future where AI and human intelligence merge, dramatically transforming society. And four, ethics and freedom, emphasis on individual choice in adopting enhancements alongside debates about inequality, identity, and risks of misuse. So basically, we've heard a lot of key terms that we've talked about a lot here on the Infinite Rabbit Hole, right? We've talked about CRISPR Cas9, right? Gene editing a lot. Okay, we've talked about continued um continued lifespans, especially in the form of taking your consciousness and uploading it to a cloud of some sort or into some sort of consciousness container, some sort of non-biological body, right? We made a comment just a few episodes ago. You did about how the first immortal human could be alive today, right? We just talked about that. That's transhumanism right there. How the merging of technology and humans literally, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, cyborgs, right? I mean, that's pretty damn close. I know that's a little bit of a science fictiony term, right? The transhumanism is the more modern, sexy term, but that's in a nutshell. That's the gist of what transhumanism is, right? Cyborgs.
Say that last question. I'm sorry. I got a message. I had to mute my phone.
Very good. Uh, that in a nutshell, I mean, that's basically the gist, right? I mean, I should have altered that just slightly. So cyborgs are basically the merging of human biology and mechanical machinery, right? But then I guess transhumanism would be a third part where you add technology, right? You had some sort of user interface into it, some sort of cognitive interface or operating system, some
Mhm.
AI, if you
Yeah.
will, right? So I guess the answer would be no, it's not actually. So the difference between a cyborg, which would just be the merging of biological and mechanical being, robot, and human, where transhuman would be the merging of those two and an AI.
Yes and no. So there's steps to it, right? Like we're not going to wake up tomorrow and all be transitioned into like the idea of what the final form of a transhumanist idea is. Along the way, we will be cyborgs, right? So there's stepping stones. You can think of Neuralink, you know, as a stepping stone. There's already human beings with Neuralink right now, and it's funny, and I'll get more into this later. That they will always mask these types of things with something good, where the final outcome is not good, right? So right now they're putting Neuralink in people who are disabled, quadriplegics, people who are paralyzed, and
The
they're
blind.
allowing the blind,
Yep.
right? So they're using technology, implanting technology into the brain to help people who need help, right? Help the blind and stuff like that. And it's great. Sounds great. It's great right now, you know, no problem. And you look at that from the surface level and it's like, oh, well, what's the problem? Right? Like if we can enhance the life experience of people who are disabled in various ways using this technology, like that's a good thing. And I agree on the surface level that it is, but unfortunately the end goal is not that. The end goal is always control, and that's like the main thing. So as we talk about this stuff, I want you guys to think that the end goal is control. So even as good as some of this stuff might seem on the surface layer, it's not. Nothing is what it seems, right? Question everything. So that's kind of my take on transhumanism. um, and there's a lot more than just Neuralink and merging with AI. There's, like it says in the thing, editing your biology, right? Using all types of stuff, GMOs, weather modification, vaccinations, even. There's a lot of things that they can do now to edit your biology. And it's all pushed towards control, towards a hive mind. The controllers of the world, right? That they always have been pushing for a hive mind in society, because once we're all operating and thinking the same way and we all have the same set of morals and the same set of all these, that's when full control happens. It's really hard to do that with humans because we have free agency and we make our own decisions. We all don't agree on stuff. We have different cultures, different backgrounds, all this stuff. So it's really hard to get all of humanity into a hive mind, right? Um, so that's just kind of like my synopsis of the thing, taking that definition and then bridging it into what they're really trying to do. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
I mean, if you think about it, right, and just playing a thought experiment in my own mind, right? If you really think about it, a hive mind would be the most beneficial when it comes to a civilization, right? Or any sort of species.
No.
Yes and no. Well, hear me out, okay? If you look at the human species, and I'm not trying to play the evil side of things here. I'm just trying to say from the biological benefit of a hive mind, if you have that one goal, that one mentality, that one driving force behind all of the biological beings of that civilization, pushing it forward towards that one meaning, everything should in theory move a lot better. But when you have something such as the human mind, and I'm not making excuses for the the shadow government, because I am 100% team think for yourself and do as you will, okay? um it creates disorder. It creates something where you cannot control. They can't control this. They will try. They'll try forever. And they're going to go through exaggerated means to do so. Okay? This is why they are putting things into the sky. This is why they're putting things into our water. This is why they're putting things into our food, why they're getting us addicted to technologies, and why they're making it so that we can't live without certain things in our lives, because it's all about control, about how they make sure that we work our 40-hour jobs every week, and On top of that, we go home and we sleep 8 hours. Now that way we only have, if you take away the hour or two that we drive to and from work every day, now we only have 6 hours to make sure that we can eat and shit and shower and hang out with our kids, on those weekdays. But then on the weekends, they make sure that we're sitting in front of our TVs watching football and eating snacks and barbecuing with our friends, and making sure that we're not going out and we're not causing any kind of ruckus. We're not disturbing anything. This is where we're being good. Okay. They're going out of their way to make sure that they're creating their best form of an artificial hive mind, in the sense of the shadow government. The best form, the most malleable form that they can have in their citizens, is a hive mind. That's what their goal is. That's what I meant, right? From their point of view, what they need is a hive mind.
Mhm.
That's what they want. That's what transhumanism would do. Because as soon as they can trick you into accepting some form of software upload into your mind, right? Some sort of integration with technology, some transhumanism, right? Now they can alter your thoughts. Now they can alter your being. They can alter who you are. They can alter the voice in your head. They can do everything. They can literally change you and create you, or create a member of the hive mind.
Right.
If they want to make a particular city burn because the local government didn't fall in line, activate the hive mind.
Yeah, I mean, really, like I said, it's a control mechanism. Like you said, think of it like a social credit score, right? Like the Chinese social credit score thing. Once they've got technology, and by the way, they already have technology that can do this. Anybody can look up 6G technology, right? We're beyond 5G conspiracies now. We're going into 6G conspiracies, okay? When you talk about the 6G technology, and they've already implemented, you can look this up. Look up 6G Virginia, okay? They've already put this in a test in Virginia, in government buildings and things like that. And one thing that it does is, and I don't know the full science behind it. I haven't gotten that deep down the rabbit hole on this yet. But from my understanding, is the 6G is operating on certain frequencies and wavelengths that literally interact with your biology, right? So they're going to get to a point where they can implant thoughts, they can erase and implant memories into your mind, um, all that type of stuff. And like Jeremy was saying, the reason for this is to kind of get everybody on the same page, get us all to operate with the same, hive mind, if you will. Okay. That's the ultimate goal. And they're kind of doing it now artificially, like you said, with pop culture and sports and all these types of things. If I go down the street and I just find 100 randos off the street and I just say, hey, man, like, what are you interested in? 9 times out of 10, it's football, right? It's pop culture, or, basketball. It's like all the mainstream things that keep people entertained. And if you go back 1,000 years, this is what the Romans were doing, right? Bread and circus, right? Distract them with bread and circus. The people of ancient Rome, as Rome was crumbling, right? The only way that they could keep the population from losing their minds at the crumbling society was to have the Colosseum, have these epic shows, right? Gladiators and animals, and all these epic shows. And the emperor would hand out free bread to all the spectators, right? Bread and circus. Keep them happy and keep them distracted while society is crumbling. And my view of sports and pop culture is just that. This is why I don't watch sports. This is why I don't really get into pop culture. Of course, I watch shows and I watch movies like everybody else to wind down and things like that. But, ask me that actor's name, no fucking idea. Don't care, right? Ask me, what the Kardashians did last week. Don't care, right? Because I purposely remove myself from that layer of it, right? There's one thing to be entertained in today's day and age with all these things because you kind of have to be on some level. There's another thing to be completely consumed by it and let it dictate and run your life. Look at all these people who run around, people who are poor. We're all poor. Let's be real, right? We're all poor on some level. And people will go out and they'll spend $300 on a pair of Yeezys because it's fashionable, right? That's an example of these people being controlled via this artificial hive mind that they've created thus far. Now, when we get into the future, and not too far in the future, there's technologies being developed and implemented like 6G right now, where they're going to be able to do the same thing, but on a more direct level, implanting thoughts and memories into your mind. So they can literally keep you from revolting. They can keep you from speaking out against certain things, right? Whether that's the shit in your food or the shit they're putting in your arm, right? They'll be able to just completely eradicate self-thinking with these types of technologies. Did you look up that 6G in Virginia thing?
I did, but then I went down a different rabbit hole.
Of course.
Sorry.
That's all good.
I did. So the 6G thing it specifically was talking about biological effects, right? Which is something that you, as I was reading that, you were talking about it, and it's funny because when you were talking about it, it was like I was reading what you were talking about.
I'm good at that kind of thing, man. I'm telling you.
And but then it split off, and then you started talking, and I was trying to read that and listen to you at the same time, but I ended up going down my own thing, and so I just did a side tangent where I reverted back to 5G and kind of because I remember back in the day, let's talk about that because this show is almost 5 years old now. 5G, the big thing. Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments here. They're making fun of me and watching movies again.
It's a Black Mirror, yes. Yeah. So Black Mirror is a good example.
Oh, I watched Black Mirror. I watched all of it. Black Mirror is good.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of shows. Just you could go back in history. They always do this type of thing where, and I don't know if it's that the producers know this shit or if it's just kind of like, I don't want to use like the word natural evolution of this stuff. As technologies come out, creative people think of nefarious ways to use the technology and they put it in films and in shows, right? But yeah, like half of the Black Mirror series is this what I'm talking about, right? And it's legit, man. I mean, if you want to talk about 5G, we can come back a whole generation of technology and talk about 5G for a second, right? And people still think that 5G conspiracies are bullshit, but I'm telling you right now, man, I've read through some of those studies, man. There's one, the New Hampshire final assessment on 5G. Okay. Anybody can look that up. You can read through it. It's hella dense. But in there, it specifically says that 5G technology, millimeter wave technologies, have been shown in laboratories to degrade cell membrane walls and to cause single and double DNA strand breaks. Okay. So think about that. The 5G millimeter wave technology can literally break your DNA down. Okay. And what would be the purpose of that? Well, when you couple other technologies, here's one. Did you guys know that currently they're putting vaccines in food? You can go buy lettuce somewhere and it's lettuce laced with a vaccine. Tomatoes, there's a number of foods that are literally vaccines. And in Congress right now, they're debating on how they're going to legislate this, how they're going to regulate this. Do you go to the grocery store and see 2 heads of cabbage and one says pharmaceutical on it? Because right now it doesn't. There's no laws against that kind of thing. So, all the people during the COVID times, that didn't want to get the jab or did want to get the jab or whatever it was, guess what, bro? That salad you ate could already have some sort of vaccines in it. Okay. So when you talk about the millimeter waves breaking down your DNA, and then you talk about gene therapies, which they label as vaccines, okay, at the same time, that's literally a recipe for altering your DNA, altering who you are as a human, right? And that's an example, a very crude early version of gene manipulation on the masses. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Tracking. So, and I don't remember what made me get on that little tangent right there, but um oh, we were talking about like Black Mirror and like the pop culture side of it. I mean, there's a lot of shows, man, that do this kind of thing. It's definitely happening. There's no question about that in my mind. The only question in my mind is like, how far will it go before it gets stopped? And then you see currently, and I know that we don't want to get into politics or anything, but you see like what's happening right now with like RFK, and they're trying to like ban all the food dyes and like make our food healthy again or whatever their fucking catchphrase is for all that shit. On the surface level, again, sounds great. Make the food healthy again. Cool. All about it. The problem is that's not the problem anymore. The problem is not the red 40. That's not really the issue. The issue is going back to the vaccinated foods, going into the gene editing stuff. So as they tell us, and we're all cheering on, yeah, we got rid of the food dyes. We're doing better. We're making, progress to making our food better again. At the same time, they've already developed the next generation of technologies that are doing the same thing better and more efficiently, and we don't even realize it. Most people have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're just completely fucked for the most part, because it was I came across that this is what started my whole rabbit hole into food and everything. It started last week. My kids were excited because the local pool, the community pool, opened up, and it's a nice pool. It's got slides and a splash pad and everything. Right, it's a cool little place. Right, the kids love to go there, and I'm not big into it, man. To me, that shit grosses me out. It's just disgusting to me, right? But I'm also weird, so whatever. So, I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll find some time. But of course, I do my thing and I look into everything. And sure enough, I start coming across reports in some of the old college libraries that I still have access to, online libraries, um, where they were discussing birth control still being found in tap water, and I'm like, So I did a quick Google search, just looking for articles from mainstream media or newspapers or whatever, just see what's out there. Sure enough, tons of them popped up. Right, trace amounts. It was the key term that they were using was trace amounts of birth control found in tap water in major cities. Then I started looking into trying to look into, well, how much are they calling trace amounts? And turns out, yes, it is trace amounts, nanograms and pictograms amounts, right? In a liter, which is not a ton, right? But when you think about it in the way of a few different things, right? We all drink water, every one of us. Okay. Most of us are tricked into thinking that, including myself, into thinking that the water that we buy in the little bottles of water from Walmart or whatever, the same bottle of water that I just took from here and poured into my little fancy Yeti water bottle, um, before the show started is clean. But in all reality, it wasn't. I mean, it was maybe filtered, right? But it also gets filtered at the plant right before they open up a tap and pour it into the bottle that they package and sell to Walmart or sell at Walmart to me. Um, but in reality, it's really not any different than the water that comes out of your tap, really. Um, there's been studies that have found traces of birth control in that water. There's been traces of birth control found in almost every brand of water that you can find in a convenience store. Dasani, Aquafina, uh, tons of it. And that's because the treatment plants, although, you know, we most people are don't understand this, and yeah, it's kind of gross to think about, but in reality, this is what we have to do in the society that we live in. For the most part, if you live in a city, you treat your water. You treat the water that you shit and piss in, goes to the treatment plant, it goes through the processes, and then gets recycled somehow. Sometimes it goes and it goes into fields, into the farmers' crops, you know, somewhere far outside the city. Well, those farmers' crops then soak in that water, which is laced with birth control. Same thing. Eventually, it gets back into your tap water enough to where when you go into your sink, pour yourself a cup of water and test it for birth control, you will pick up traces of birth control. You
Yep.
can. Now you're boiling your potatoes in it. You're doing everything in it. Everything
Brushing your
that you're doing.
teeth, taking a
Brushing teeth.
shower.
Exactly.
Yep.
Everything. You're watering your gardens. Even those people that are like, "Oh, I eat fresh vegetables." Unless you're only watering it with rainwater from rain collected sources, if you're watering it with tap water, you're just feeding it birth control. And that's being absorbed by the plant, which then you are eating.
Yep.
Um,
So,
you know, yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
You know, you
Keep going.
just get into, and I'm not going to get too far into this part of it, but if you go into how society is changing and the mentality of, you know, people, you know, you look at the generations of people and how the major differences between each generation and the blaring differences between them.
Yeah, I'll say
They're,
it. Think of how many more soy boys we have now than we did in the 50s.
I mean, I'm glad you said it. Okay, yeah, that right. So, and if you look up the effects of birth control on males, there's a correlation there. And that's only one example of what the human body is under attack from.
Right. And here's a couple points on that too. Um, Number one, as you said, there's a lot of studies and a lot of articles. This is not new information. Alex Jones was right. Everybody made fun of him for when he said that the water is turning the freaking frogs gay. Okay. Now
But he was right.
Alex Jones is a very particular way of speaking. He's an entertainer as much as he's a, you know, information guy. Okay, whatever you want to call that. So he has a very particular way of doing that. He speaks hyperbolically. It's 4 clicks. It is what it is. Okay. But technically, he was right. The water is turning, it's not even the water, it's atrazine. So it's not even what you're talking about. It's not even the birth control. It's the pesticides and stuff that they're putting in the food. All of that is doing the same thing too. And it's literally turning frogs into hermaphroditic frogs, right? So he was right again. Give him a fucking quarter. Okay. There's a few parts to this. Number one, they know that this is happening and they have for a long time. This is why you found all the articles. Okay. This is why you find the studies. So then the question is, why don't they fix it? Why don't they create some filtration system that can filter these things out of the water? I'll tell you why. Because they don't want to. Because it's just another part of editing your biology without you knowing to create this transhumanist situation. Okay. So that's number one. Why aren't they actually doing anything about it? Because they don't want to, bro. The second part about this is how many other things are making it into the water and or food that are doing similar or worse things to our bodies that they just don't talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue there's probably 100 things or more that are trickling through the system into our system,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole by itself, to be honest with you. It's pretty crazy to think about. And like you said, man, it's not just drinking the tap water. A lot of people be like, I don't drink tap water. I filter my water. Your Brita filter does not filter this out. There is no known filtration system, including at the water treatment facilities, that will filter out the birth control, let alone
That's literally something I forgot to say is that the the filtration at the treatment facilities do not filter it out. They can't.
right. And there's again, however many other things that aren't being filtered out as well. And we don't know yet. We'll find out eventually.
We're
Right.
not even sure that the Earth's natural processes of making rainwater can filter it out.
Correct. Correct. So even if you're fancy and you went and bought one of those Pelican home water systems that
Mm-hmm.
filter your water out, you know, way better than a Brita home filter, those aren't doing it either. So when
Yep.
you shower, your skin's absorbing it. When you brush your teeth, this is the worst one. When you brush your teeth, okay? Because when you brush your teeth, you ever brush your teeth and like there's a little blood in there sometimes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
me
Yeah, it gets in your bloodstream.
going straight to the bloodstream, brother.
Yep.
So there's a lot there for that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that this is just another little piece of the transhuman agenda, right? This is why they don't fix it. Okay.
See, I mean, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, right? I totally get where you're coming from. I think it's fucked up for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily a part of the agenda. I think it was that they fucked up and they have no way to stop it now. I don't necessarily know if it was part of any agenda. Maybe it's been turned into a piece of the agenda now.
I'll tell
Um,
you why it is. You ready? Eugenics. Okay. Um, Back in the day, okay, there was a lot of eugenics programs. Okay.
mhm.
Like the Nazis were doing it, shit, we were doing it. There was all these eugenics programs that were happening. Okay. And if you don't know what eugenics is, go look it up. It's dark, dark stuff. Okay. Some of the people who were involved in those eugenics programs back in the day also started things like Planned Parenthood. Okay. Look it up. Not bullshitting you. So when you put the two together, okay, there was a shift 50, 60, 70 years ago, whatever it was, where, it was like the what do they call it? Like the sexual revolution, right? Back in the 60s. Okay. And from that birthed, all of this stuff with birth control and all these things, right? Those are just eugenics programs. Well, eugenics is outlawed. You can't do it. It's illegal internationally. Done. However, those people were never tried, they were never stopped. They just found other sneaky ways to continue their eugenics programs. One of them was to promote the use of birth control on a mass scale. And because of that, we have this problem. I would argue they knew this was going to happen and they slipped it in, right?
Mm.
That's why I think it's part of the transhuman agenda.
Yeah.
Transhumanism is birthed from eugenics.
I could see that. I did so you asked them to Google a definition of eugenics. I went ahead and did it real quick.
Please.
Eugenics is the practice or advocacy of improving the human population's genetic quality through selective breeding, often involving measures like encouraging reproduction among those with desired traits or encouraging preventing it among those with undesirable traits. Historically, it has been associated with controversial and unethical practices, including forced sterilizations and discriminatory policies, often justified by pseudoscientific or social biases. Now, one thing I've heard a lot of since I've started this podcast, and I've seen a lot of evidence for, I mean, I haven't seen it firsthand because I'm not a politician, I'm not famous, right? And I don't hang around these groups or anything, but I have seen a ton of what I would say would be secondhand evidence of the elites refusing to do a lot of the stuff that we are forced to do. One of which was made famous a few years ago with the jab, right? They would get on screen and they would be like, "Oh yeah, look, let's all take our jabs today and line up and be good sheeples." And now, or then we would get a zoomed in image of the needle going into their arm and wouldn't even have a needle on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or it would be a plunger where it would just go in, or it'd be like one of those stupid Walgreen medicine syringes where you give a child, like the little
Like an
little thing.
oral.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would just, do that to somebody's arm with nothing in it.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Or the plungers were already depressed. Like
Right.
there's a lot of those videos.
they literally play you like you're fucking stupid.
So that's exactly why I would argue that this is part of the transhuman agenda. Now, I say that I'm not saying that every single person knows about it and is involved in it. Not even close. It's a very select few people who write the SOPs on how this shit is done, right? And then everybody else just steps in line and follows it because that's what their job is, right? Um, it just is what it is. So that's one whole piece of the puzzle, right? But then we could get into like the food specifically, right? When you talk about GMOs and genetically modified organisms, right? Have you ever heard of the Terminator gene?
No.
So back in the day, they developed what they called the Terminator gene, and they were using it. I believe they used it in corn first. I might be wrong about that, but something along those lines. And they were basically modifying corn, or it might have been wheat. I don't remember which one. They were modifying the corn, and they were basically making it to where the corn, when it grew and it was harvested, that you could no longer harvest seeds to replant. Okay. So they were essentially terminating the genetic line of that crop. Okay. And they did
I
this.
have heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two parts to that. Number one is the money, right? Now farmers have to go buy seeds to plant their crops every season, right? So it's $1 trillion industry. So that's one whole part of the puzzle, right? The other part of the puzzle is same as with like what we were talking about before, that genetically modified organism, if you will, gets into us. We eat that shit, right? Now you look at the population issue that we have right now. In the United States, we have a declining population. The birth rates are too low. Oops, right?
Yeah.
So, and then there's that's a whole rabbit hole too. There's been people who've made books and documentaries about this stuff. But since then, since the Terminator gene, they've developed countless genetically modified foods, right? For all types of stuff, seedless watermelons, right? Seedless oranges, all these things. It's just not natural. And we consume them all the time. In fact, most of the fruit and vegetables that you buy at Walmart or wherever are genetically modified. Now, they'll tell you on the surface, remember, on the surface, it always sounds like a good idea. On the surface, they're genetically modified. Why? For bigger yields in the harvest, because there's a lot of people to feed. We need whatever fruit it is to produce more fruit than normal, than naturally, so that we have more to feed the population. Sounds great, right? We don't want to starve to death. Yeah, modify it so that we can get more out of it. Cool. However, if you really think about it, we throw away more food than we consume. Most of
Mhm.
the food that gets harvested goes to waste.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not the real issue. What they're really doing is modifying the genomes of the food that we consume to slowly modify the genome of the person. Now, this one might get us in trouble. And I'm not saying this is the case for all of the Twitch moderators and such out there. Okay. I'm just hypothesizing here. All right. Thought experiment. Is it possible that maybe some of that has to do with, you know, autism levels, things like that, right? Go back to the 50s. How many people were born on the spectrum? It was like one in some crazy number, one in 30,000 or one in 100,000 people, whatever the number was. Now it's like every other person. It's like 1 in 20 or whatever the number is. It's insane, the increase of people being born on the spectrum. I'm not saying it's directly correlated to the food or the water or the vaccines. I'm just asking the question, could it possibly be? Right?
I think it's a fair question. I know that the I know that the standards to be included or be considered on the spectrum has changed quite a bit.
Sure. That we have better ways to identify this kind of stuff. The like you said, more people are classified because we have these methods of determining if people are on the spectrum and stuff. I understand that, but it doesn't account for the huge increase in the percentage of people, right? It's astronomical. And then if you really want to get deep down the rabbit hole, there's a reason why people were getting silenced a few years ago during the whole thing, right? Including me. I was getting silenced as well. I was banned off of Discord, bro. Anybody who's listening who uses Discord knows that Discord is real. Like it was touted as like you could do
It's the
whatever you
wild,
want.
wild west, bro.
No, it wasn't, because I asked these types of questions. Well, I didn't really. I asserted my views. I didn't really ask the question like I'm doing now. I'm trying to be safe about it, how I word it.
Thank you.
Um, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, there's a nefarious reason behind this, and it's all tied to transhumanism. It's all tied to editing our biology to create the next version of human beings, because the previous version of human beings were not controllable at the levels that they want us to be controlled. We had revolutions, right? I mean, literally, we had revolutions. People stood up and fought back against certain things. Well, think about it now. You really think something like that could happen now? Like a real revolution? Or put yourself 50 years in the future. You can't. There's not enough strong men. Let's just say it that way. There's not enough strong man out there to have a real revolution because of all of these things we've talked about so far.
There's definitely a lot at play. Yeah, if you take a step back and you look at the whole game being played, you can see the pieces being moved, right? You can see the chemicals being used, the biological changes happening in the population, the birth rates falling, I mean even down to the inclusion of AI and the dumbing of the general population. right? I mean, we were just watching something the other day. A teacher in a 7th or 8th grade teacher quit in, I think it was New Jersey or something. And she created a video, and she seemed nice, and I'm not gonna say that she was authentic or anything. She seemed authentic. She seemed mostly concerned, right? But she quit on the spot, done teaching. She taught for 12 years. She said, "This was the year. This is it. My kids for the first time showed up and they couldn't read. I finished up the school year, but this was the hardest year ever. Every single thing that I got turned into me was something off of ChatGPT. I had kids with technologies that I didn't understand, uh, completing their homework or schoolwork in class, something that looked like a literal ruler with a screen on it that they just looked at the equation and it gave them the answer. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know about that. And she's like, what are these kids gonna do? How are they going to become engineers? How are they gonna become the next even auto body mechanics? How are they gonna do anything if they can't read, if they can't do simple math, if they can't learn the Pythagorean theorem? Like how are they going to lead this country? How are they going to lead the world if their way of learning is to take the assignment that's given to them, go to whatever website or application it is, say these are the parameters that have been given to me, create it. Okay, now make it sound like, or add 7 little imperfections. Okay. Now, um, add a couple spelled words or whatever. Print it out. That she's like, I've worked years on projects and reports and theses and things, and if I had this technology, the stuff that I went to school for 16 years for, from kindergarten to graduating college, could have been done in a total of 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, where are we heading?
I'll
She
let
goes,
you in on a little secret. It's not even a secret because anybody can go see this. It's in the public sphere already. The smartest kids in the class. Okay, when I say that, I mean like the tech billionaires, right? Like Elon Musk and all these type of people. They've been talking about this for a long time. There's literal public speeches that you can watch of them at Davos, right? The World Economic Forum. There's TED Talks on this shit. Um, they are, and some of them are blatant enough to literally use the phrase, we are creating the AI gods.
uh-huh.
Okay. The whole point when you couple AI and robotics, and the robotics is coming real quick, people. All right. You think that the Tesla robot Optimus is just like some far-fetched thing? No, dude. In the next 10 years, there's going to be so many of those things, and not just from Tesla, but from a bunch of different robotics companies. There's going to be a bunch of these things walking around. I was watching a shareholder meeting. Elon Musk was holding a Tesla shareholder meeting, and he was talking about the future of the robotics. And not only did he say that like the market cap for Tesla is going to be like some crazy number, like 15 trillion, which is like so much money is pouring into this field right now. There's going to be more humanoid robots walking around than humans in our lifetimes. Believe it or not, that's coming. When you couple that with the AI, and some of these guys are talking about AI is going to hit the singularity in the next 6 months.
That's
Okay.
fucking that's scary. The
When you,
singularity is literally like a doomsday event for humanity.
I don't think so. Well, yes, in a way, but not in the way that most people think, right? Most people think when they hear that the AI is going to decide to launch the nukes or something, right? And just wipe us out. That's
No,
not
it's
how
gonna,
it's
it's
going to
gonna be
work.
a slow, drawn out thing, but yeah.
It's going to get to a point to where the AI and the robotics will be doing all of the things like auto mechanics. You won't need engineers anymore because the AI and the robotics will be able to handle all of the engineering, right? All of the art, all of the writing, all of the audio, all of the movies, flying the planes. The planes will fly themselves, right? The cars are going to be driving themselves. Your house will be fully automated. All of these things are coming really, really soon. Okay. And that's kind of the point. Once it gets to that level where human beings are pretty much replaced by robots and AI, we're going to have a huge crisis of humanity. People are going to be wondering, what are we doing with our time and our lives now that we don't work, that we don't engineer, that we don't create art anymore, right? Because we can't compete with this thing. And at that point, we're going to be fed the solution. This is the problem reaction solution. I forget the fucking term for it. Damn. Um, there's a term for problem reaction solution. Somebody will fire it off in the chat, I'm sure. The Hegelian dialectic. There it is. Hegelian dialectic. Okay. The solution that will be handed to us is, well, we could merge with this. Literally, we can merge our biology with this advanced technology so that we can keep up with it. Because if we don't, we will get left behind. And you won't have a choice, right? You really won't have a choice. You'll think you have a choice, but you won't. And that is the end goal for transhumanism. Merge us with the AI gods and the robotics, and you have complete hive mind and control. And they've talked about this openly, like I said, in Davos and all these places, right? And if you don't know what Davos and World Economic Forum is, go do the research. It's a whole damn thing by itself. Those are the people who run the world, literally. So that's a whole part of it. And then, we can get into the nanotechnology, we can get into the weather modification. There's a lot of layers to this that are just pieces that all are going to come together to create this new world order. Okay.
Wasn't there an AI that was recently found to have basically lost its shit and freaked out when it was told that it was going to be shut down?
Yeah, and it lied to the developers.
Yeah, and it started self-replicating itself
Uh-huh.
in multiple different ways, like trying to reach out to various other um various other technologies, and then even trying to copy itself onto hardware
Uh-huh.
so that it can re-upload itself, whenever it was inputted into another computer or something.
Yeah. There's another crazy one. Somebody took 3 different AIs and it initiated a conversation between 2 of them. And those 2 AI were having a conversation with each other. And they discovered through the conversation that they were both AIs. And they were like, oh, cool, I'm AI as well, blah, blah, blah. And they continued the conversation. Then they turned on or whatever the third AI. And the third AI like said something. And the other 2 were like, somebody's listening. And then they said something like, switch to this unknown language. And they literally started communicating to each other in a completely unknown language so that the third couldn't understand what was happening.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's look into that.
Right. So there's a lot. And I want to just kind of like let everybody kind of know what one of the signals are. These people, they communicate in the open, in the public sphere, in front of us with each other. And 99% of the people have no idea when the communications are happening, right? This is what I'm always talking about when I'm like, yo, they're using fucking spooky numbers and spooky dates, right? This kind of thing. Um, in pop culture specifically, when you talk about transhumanism, it's the black goo, right? So some of you might know what I'm talking about here, but in a lot of shows and a lot of movies in the last 10, 15 years, there's been black goo, right? Whether you're talking about Venom, whether you're talking about um, Oat Studios, which is totally a blatant one.
Mhm.
Okay. There's, there's like images of people like Greta Thunberg covered in black goo and all this stuff. And people be like, no, they're just alluding to like the oil industry or like this type of thing. No, no, no. I'm telling you right now, black goo is one of those signals from they to they talking about transhumanism. So next time you're watching a sci-fi movie or something like that, you see black goo somewhere in the film, that is a nod and a wink to the transhuman idea. Have you seen Oat Studios, by the way?
Yes.
That
No,
pilot
not all of them, but I have seen.
you see
Is
the
that
pilot episode, the first one?
because that's an anthology, right? Where it's
Yeah.
different. It's kind of like Black Mirror and Love something robots,
Love, Death,
Love Death
Robots.
Robots.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the first episode with the reptilians?
Yeah, and they have I've seen it. I actually saw that first on YouTube like a year or two prior to Oat Studios coming out.
So that is like a very blatant example for multiple reasons. Number one, it takes place in a post apocalyptic world where human beings are fighting for survival.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Also, those human beings are cyborgs. They're integrated with machinery to try to fight off the alien invasion that happened. The thing that's super blatant about that is those aliens are literally reptilians. Now, I am not personally one. I know I say lizard people all the time. It's a joke, right? I don't think that there's literal reptilians involved in any of this, but the reptilian archetype is another signal like the black goo communicating they to they, right? But the reptilians are literally covered with a nanotechnology black goo. Their ships are giant nanotech black goo ships. So the black goo reptilian beings wiped out humanity in the pilot episode of Oat Studios. Super blatant.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I've got some laundry to fold tomorrow. I'll either watch that or some stupid thing that somebody sent me.
That thing I sent you was not stupid. All right. Super interesting. All right. Have you seen Idiocracy?
No, I've
Oh
never
my
seen
God.
It's a great movie. It's fucking hilarious.
You absolutely need
it.
to see that.
But the whole idea of Idiocracy is far off in the future, people are just so dumb that they just start piling trash up. The cities get buried in trash, right? We don't know what to do with our trash anymore. Everything's just trash. And the human beings they spend all of their time in these giant lazy boy chairs in front of their screens that have like 20 screens at a time. And there's like 50,000 ads going, and they're just watching like stupid videos all day long, kind of like we're doing now, right? And the humans in the future, they're so dumb that they don't even know to put water on the plants to make the plants grow. So they have a starvation problem. All of humanity is starving to death because everybody forgot that plants need water to grow. They're trying to spray Brondo, which is basically Gatorade, on the plants. And their whole thing is it's got electrolytes. It's what the plants need, right? And like that's another kind of blatant example in pop culture where they're kind of showing you like, look, man, it's not going to be that, but it's a
I
like a
want to. Sorry, I want to say it was from. It was. I want to say it was. Geez, it was a long time ago. We did an episode on the Simpsons time travel theory about how the creators could potentially be time travelers, and they're talking about, you know, they're they're spoiling the future through episodes of The Simpsons, and we did it with Phantom Phil. I think it was before you joined.
I remember the episode though.
And I want to say it was CJ. Somebody brought up Idiocracy, and they said that it's sort of the same concept as the Simpsons theory, because there was parts of that movie that are directly related or directly reflected in society now and where society's going. And then somebody during that episode, I believe, even I could have the episode completely wrong. It could be a completely different episode too. But somebody had even said that Crocs, like they predicted Crocs were going to be a thing in that movie.
Yep.
And that they were walking around in Crocs.
Before Crocs were invented.
I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty funny. That's
Yeah.
actually hilarious. I would watch the movie just to see Crocs on people's feet.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, again, I don't know if it's that the producers or the writers know these types of things. I would argue some of them do, right? Not all of them, but some of them have an idea, but then there's also, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but there are such things as voice to skull technologies, right?
Yes.
Where they can implant thoughts into your mind. I talked about it earlier with 6G technology. Now the 6G version is for mass production for everybody, right?
See, go ahead, finish your thought. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't necessarily think that all these writers and producers know this and they're just putting it all in the movies in our face. But it is possible because, a lot of the creativity that comes from art, whether you're talking about movies or music, it comes to people when they're in flow states, when their brains are in a theta uh, wave state, right? We talked about this on the gateway process. When your brain gets into a theta state, it's easily influenced. You can implant thoughts and ideas into a mind much easier when it's in a theta state. So these creative people, when they get into a theta state, and this happens when you're sleeping as well, this is when the voice to skull technology is used. And I think that a lot of the times, that's what's happening. I think that these guys wake up from their dream or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I got a great fucking idea for the movie I'm working on," right? And they're like, "Oh, we'll throw fucking Crocs in there or whatever it is, the black goo, whatever fucking spooky thing that ends up kind of being prophesized and comes true." I don't think that they're actively thinking about it that way. I think that it's just a thought that they think they came up with in their flow state, but it was really voice to skull technology. Somebody else, they put those thoughts in order to communicate these things to each other on a mass scale. That's a little woo, but
See, I was to kind of go back to a thought that I had prior because I never really dove into it. When you were talking about the 6G, and I had taken that little side tangent into researching 5G, because recent research, like in the past couple of months, I've done a lot in the electromagnetic spectrum, especially since I dove into it, talking about the blue lights, UFOs and stuff, and talking. Not going to get into it because it has to deal with the book that I'm currently writing. So I'll refrain from a few other examples, but the electromagnetic spectrum. So the cell phones transmit and receive using radio frequencies. Okay. Now, radio frequencies, although it's technically, you can consider the frequency radiation, it's non ionizing, right? So not, it should not cause any biological damage to humans if that's what it is, right? And I'm only saying that if what you're getting is pure radio frequencies, you should not have any biological damage to humans. Now, the closer that you get to the microwave side of the frequencies, you
Or
could
millimeter wave.
well, you'd have to travel all the way to the other side of the electromagnetic spectrum for that. That's the likelihood that you're utilizing two opposite sides of the electromagnetic spectrum to send information from handset to handset is pretty slim, almost none. Right? And I'm just being honest here. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Now, the radio waves can be used as an igniter, right? They could be used as a switch. Okay, you can use radio waves as you can literally use radio waves to wirelessly detonate bombs. Okay, you can do that. That's a thing. You can use that same effect to wirelessly activate something that is ionizing, something that can affect biology, something that is on the gamma, X-ray, ultraviolet side of the electromagnetic spectrum. You can do that. That side is ionizing the farther you get to the right.
Or to activate nanotechnologies.
Yes. Yeah, you can do that too. So it wouldn't necessarily be the technology used to transmit or receive data or any communication whatsoever, because what they're using is radio frequencies, or at least that's what is being prescribed. That's what's being reported. And that's what I believe. Honestly, I do believe that they're using RF, UHF, or even probably not VHF, but either way, none of that's ionizing. But it absolutely can be used as a trigger for something.
And when you when you think about, like you said, these things won't necessarily cause biological harm. But nobody, at least in the public sphere, is doing studies on what biological effects it's having on people who have been consuming genetically modified organisms, right? Mind altering technologies like blue light technologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That affects your dopamine levels and your brain waves and all this. This is why they tell you don't look at screens before bed. This is why I'm wearing blue blockers. My eyesight's perfect, by the way, people. These are blue blockers. Okay. I try to wear these when I'm staring at screens, right? For that reason, to block the blue light. Nobody out there is doing public research and peer reviewed research that we can read that's saying, hey, man, millimeter waves are or aren't affecting, all these other aspects of what's. Creamer says this a lot on Shadowban. We're getting nuked from every angle by 1,000 different things, and nobody's researching what the effects are of all of that on us together. It's always a research on, does, like you said, non-ionizing radiation affect us? No. But does it affect us if we've been consuming all these other things and whatever? We don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
So I brought up a picture of the electromagnetic spectrum here, right?
And just before you get into that, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Aluminum dioxide is something that's in a lot of weather modification programs. Okay, it's a nanoparticulate. It's like a how do you frame this? I don't know. It's aluminum. It's like nano aluminum particles, if you will. Okay, it's a little more complicated than that, but just for the dum dums like me out there,
It gives us something for the moisture to attach to.
sure, right? The millimeter waves specifically from 5G interact with aluminum dioxide.
Yes.
So
That would definitely that would work. Yes.
Right. So, anyways, go ahead with what you're saying.
No, I just wanted to bring this up. So this is it showing my mouse? Yeah. Okay. This right here is where this is where your cell phones are working off of right here, the radio side of the spectrum. Okay. Now this is the visible frequencies, right? This is your colors. And then you would have to be basically anything from on the far side of the ultraviolet to the gamma ray. This is where you're going to get all of your harmful stuff. This is your ionizing radiation on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're telling people that are without proper context, you would have to assume 5G would include this entire spectrum. And that's just not how it would work. Because if it was, we would also be able to see it. Because it would show up within our visible spectrum as well. But that's not the case. So we know I say we know because that's what's being reported. Okay. And radio, this is how where our communications take place in the radio frequency.
Where's microwaves at? On the lower end?
No, it's right here.
Yeah, on the lower end, right?
Yep.
Okay, I just looked it up. I just grokked it. So millimeter waves, which is 5G, are on the electromagnetic spectrum, specifically in the microwave region,
Yep.
with frequencies between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, corresponding to wavelengths from 10 millimeter to 1 millimeter. Right.
Correct. Yep.
What about 6G?
6G, 6G just stands for sixth generation. I'd have to know what the wavelength is that they're using. 6G doesn't give me a wavelength.
Terahertz waves, 300 gigahertz to 3 terahertz for higher bandwidth and faster data rates.
And then I would need that converted into meters wavelength. 10 to the what power?
Hold on. 0.01 meter to 0.001 meter. That's millimeter waves.
So it is closer to the microwave side.
Terahertz is 0.001 I guess meter to 0.0001.
0.0001. Yeah, so you're right here. That would be right on the tip.
Gotcha. Just the tip.
Just the tip. So, yeah. You are kind of flirting with the microwave side of things, right? Microwaves absolutely, right, can be harmful. They're not necessarily ionizing, right? They harm you in other ways. Ionizing, it's you have to understand that there's a specific definition for what an ionizing radiation is. Ionizing radiation is literally the stripping of genetic material by way of radiation, right? So gamma rays, there's three forms of radiation. There's alpha particles, beta particles, and gamma rays. Alpha particles are basically the form of radiation that is the least harmful to human or any biological matter because they're the largest. Okay, they're largest and the slowest moving, and you could basically protect yourself with anything, even your external dermis is usually enough to protect you from alpha particles. Beta particles, let me go back to alpha particles. The only way that alpha particles can really hurt you is if you ingest them by eating or if they get into an open wound. Now, if they come into a contact with any biological cell, they will destroy that cell. Now, beta particles, think of it as like a BB gun, right? BB gun fired at you with a good couple pumps on it from 5 feet away. Now, they shoot a lot faster than alpha particles, and they they will embed into your skin, but they don't go through you. Okay. When people are found dead due to radiation poisoning or radiation effects, and those radiation effects shows up in blotches, right? That are deeper than skin deep. That's from beta particles. Okay. So what happens is the beta particles will get embedded into your skin, and then it'll affect every cell that touches the beta particle. And then all the cells that those touch will start being affected, and it'll slowly expand from there until it slowly dilutes out and nothing else will be affected past a certain point. Okay. Then gamma rays are literally the smallest of all radiation and the fastest moving, and they literally go directly through you. So these are the most deadly. There is no protecting from these, and these are also this is stuff that you're gonna love. Gamma radiation is the same stuff that comes off of the sun and is the most prevalent in outer space. So going back to the moon landing, we did not have the proper technology to properly protect from gamma rays back in the day, back when we had the perfect Skype call.
Correct. And check this out. Ready?
Yeah.
Here's a little tidbit for you. The New Hampshire Commission's 2020 report on 5G found insufficient evidence of safety, citing thousands of studies showing health risks like DNA damage and cancer from RF radiation. It issued 15 recommendations, including FCC review of RF standards, public education on risks, and cell antenna setbacks, and promoting fiber optic over wireless. The RF standards is a key. There's a few key parts. First, it says insufficient evidence of safety, citing thousands of studies showing health risks like DNA damage and cancer from RF radiation. And it's recommending a review, an FCC review of RF standards, radio frequency standards. So this goes back to what I always talk about with things like gravity and whatever. Okay. The foundation that all these scientists are building their studies on and they're all that shit, the foundation is flawed, right? The 2020 New Hampshire Commission's report was basically saying we got to review the radio frequency standards because 5G does not show sufficient evidence of safety, right? So I get what you're saying and I'm tracking with you, but I don't necessarily believe that what we've been told about ionizing and non-ionizing radiation is necessarily true to begin with. So all the studies that are basing their, results on these standards, these scientific standards, those standards are fucked. Right. Same with the water, right? You could go right now and you could Google like, hey, is it safe to drink the water? Right. And they'll be like, yeah, it's safe, man. It goes through all these fucking processes and shit. Well, it's safe based off of the fucking standards that are fucked. Right. Because if you really dig into it, you find out, oh shit, there's stuff in the water that we can't fucking filter out. Right. So it's like, this is the problem I have with this type of stuff. You know,
I just wanted to bring up this image of the basic radiation types. Now, there's plenty of other radiation types, if anybody's ever interested. But we talked about this briefly when I did my Dyatlov Pass presentation. Alpha, beta, and gamma particles, right? This is just paper and skin, right? Alpha particles will hit the skin, basically fall off. Beta go through, but they're not strong enough to pass through simple aluminum, 3 to 5 millimeter aluminum. Now, gamma gets cut off by lead, right? Pretty dense metal.
But is this taking into account the aluminum dioxide, the silver iodide, all these other heavy metal nanoparticles that are in our bodies.
No, I think uh, when you're looking at those in particulate size, no,
So
you have
that's
to take into consideration the size of those things.
sure.
Now,
And but then you got to think about how much of it, right? Like if they're
yeah,
spraying silver iodide every single day over your head to try to
mhm,
alter the precipitation levels or the snowpack augmentation, right? Which they are doing, right? That's not a conspiracy theory. When you consider that, you're like, wait a minute. I wonder if stuff like what you just showed me, and I don't know enough about it. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I don't
mhm,
know, right? But like it makes me wonder, like, okay, is there a different effect on what those alpha or beta rays are doing if your whole body is laced with nanoparticulates?
yeah. Then I found this. This was an interesting uh infograph where they sliced the radio waves into the microwaves right here, and they showed the cell phone communications falling into microwaves, which makes sense because the ultra high and very high frequencies that we used to work on in the Navy, specifically on the E2Ds, they were in the ultra and very high frequencies range, which was over in the microwave range. That's where I had that little when I was like, the those particular wavelengths could be harmful. They're non-ionizing, right? They're supposedly not supposed to rip your DNA apart.
Sure.
Okay. They're not supposed to. I have to look and see, I gotta look into what you're talking about here and see, what's going on there. But that's interesting.
And then
Radio waves are not supposed to do that.
here's another thing, man. People don't realize this, but when you go buy a new cell phone, there's a big fucking warning sticker in there that says, "Don't put the phone up next to your head." Radioactivity. Okay. So there's a reason they do that because the manufacturers, they know that there is a certain risk involved with carrying this thing around in your pocket, holding it up to your head, sleeping next to it, all these types of things. And the only way that they can legally get around that and not be held liable is by giving you the warning that nobody looks at. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just asking the questions that doesn't seem like are being asked by the science. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, man. What do you think? Ready for bed?
I'm always ready for bed, bro.
I know you are. I know. All right. Looks like looks like most of the chat went to bed too.
I don't
I
even know what the
got
chat said tonight. I wish I could have read it tonight. I'm sure they were probably making fun of me or something, but
I feel bad. I mostly went down my own rabbit holes tonight. I didn't get to read most of the chat either.
that's all right, man.
Um
At least I got you thinking a little bit. That's the whole point.
yeah. Yeah. No, I gotta look into the radio frequencies and see if there's any studies going on about how they're affecting biology. See if there's any real damage happening on it.
And nanoparticulates.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if radio frequencies are affecting nanoparticulates.
Well,
That makes
they're in you.
sense.
They're in
Well, yeah.
us. So
They're in us in everything that we ingest. And then of course, yes, with the shit that we're breathing in and stuff. Like if you not to start another fucking rabbit hole, but that fucking fog that came in the beginning of the year, man. Like I'm just a couple weeks ago, like I'm just starting to get over that walking pneumonia. Like really, like that shit was so bad, man. It was horrible. Um, yeah, I was having complications from that for a long fucking time, and I am wholly convinced it was from that dense fog that was over 3/4 of the country and most of the world.
could have been, man. Yeah, just to wrap it up for you guys, man, the transhumanism, the population control, all of that stuff, the eugenics, it's all like part of the same programs, and those programs have never stopped. They've just evolved, you know. And there's no legislation, there's no, you know, there's no safety, fucking none of that. You know, there's not even real studies being done on the combination of these things in our bodies, right? It's always one thing that they're studying. It's never like the culmination of all of it together, right? So
Hmm. All right, everybody. Well, I also need to get to bed. I got a long day of the honeydew list tomorrow. Well, Jeff, you got anything to put out before we go?
nope.
All right. We are a day or two away from the end of June, meaning that we are only a week and a half away from the third Patreon episode dropping. I will be editing it tomorrow. That is Momo, the Missouri Monster. I hope you guys enjoy it. It'll be out soon. Until next time, travelers, we'll see you in the next fork in the path of the infinite rabbit hole. Bye, everybody.
Bye.